If you walk into a bank asking for help and the manager offers you a loan with predatory interest rates stretching to 2031, they're not trying to save your business, Habs Nation. They're trying to own your life. That's exactly the kind of corporate loan sharking the St. Louis Blues are attempting to pull on the Montreal Canadiens front office right now. The bait's name is Robert Thomas. The media is spinning a narrative that he's a savior, missing from our top-line attack. But the fine print of this contract reads like a tactical horror movie. Thomas carries a radioactive salary of over $8 million per year into the end of the next decade. He holds absolute veto power over any trade with a full no-move clause. And to make matters worse, he's fresh off leg surgery, with question marks hovering over his recovery timeline. The extortion comes at the price tag. Rumors suggest the Blues are demanding the equivalent of 3 first-round picks or our most untouchable prospects to let him go. They're asking us to pay a fortune to clean up their financial mess. Today, we're going to slice open this predatory deal. We'll break down why Robert Thomas, on paper, looks like a dream fit, but smells like a trap, how the Blues are trying to exploit our need for a center to offload their cap burden, and what it means to sacrifice our future for a player with injury concerns and a veto hammer. But before I lay out the gory details of this proposal on your screen, I'm handing you the keys to Montreal's future. You're in the GM's chair right now. Would you be willing to sacrifice our entire draft haul and blow up our salary cap, tethering the franchise to an injured player until 2031? Or do you slam the phone down on St. Louis and send a clear message that Montreal isn't a charity for other teams' financial disasters? Think with ruthless clarity, because the Bell Center doesn't tolerate being played for fools. Let's dissect the tactical bait first. Robert Thomas, when healthy, is a legitimate top-line center. At 26 years old, he's posted elite numbers in recent seasons. Think 80-plus points at his peak with St. Louis. He's a playmaker with vision, a face-off winner, and a player who can drive a line alongside snipers like Cole Caulfield or Nick Suzuki. Shift him to the second line as a 2C, and suddenly our center depth looks cup-worthy. He's got the kind of hockey IQ that could elevate our power play and stabilize matchups against the East's best. On paper, he's the missing piece for a team hovering near the top of the conference, but lacking that final punch to go all the way. But paper doesn't play hockey. Reality does. And the reality is a nightmare. Thomas's $8.125 million cap hit runs through 2031. 7 more years after this one. That's not a contract. It's a life sentence. By the time it expires, he'll be 33, potentially past his prime, eating up cap space while we're trying to extend the next wave of young stars like Slavkovsky, Demidov, or Hudson. In a rising cap world, $8 million might not be catastrophic today, but if the production dips or injuries pile up, it becomes an albatross. And with a full no-move clause, we can't even trade him without his blessing. We'd be stuck, married to a deal with no escape hatch. Then there's the injury red flag. Thomas just underwent leg surgery, and while timeline suggests he could return this season, there's no guarantee he comes back at 100%. Lower body injuries for a player who relies on skating and agility to dominate can linger, sapping explosiveness or confidence. Are we willing to bet a king's ransom on a player who might not even be the same when he steps back on the ice? And let's talk about the ransom itself. St. Louis isn't in a position of strength. Their standings are abysmal, and they're desperate to shed salary to kickstart a rebuild. But they're playing hardball, banking on our need for a center. 3 first-round picks worth of value, or a package of our top prospects like Lane Hudson or David Reinbacher, is the rumored ask. That's not a trade. It's a heist. They're trying to offload a bloated contract with injury risk attached, and they want us to pay as if we're getting a guaranteed superstar. It's predatory pricing, exploiting our desperation to fix a hole in the lineup while they clean up their cap mess. This is where the swift justice of hockey comes into play. St. Louis overcommit to long-term deals like Thomas's during a window that's now slammed shut. Their karma is a roster stuck in purgatory, too expensive to rebuild easily, not good enough to contend. But instead of eating the cost of their mistake, they're trying to pass the bill to us. If Kent Hughes bites, the punishment for Montreal could be just as severe. A gutted prospect pool, a strangled cap sheet, and a player who might not even want to be here, given his veto power. Thomas could simply say no to Montreal, forcing us to burn assets for nothing if he doesn't waive his clause. There's also the question of fit under Martin St. Louis system. Thomas is a skilled, offensive-minded center, but his defensive game isn't his calling card. Montreal's system demands a 200-foot commitment, especially from centers who anchor lines. If Thomas isn't willing to grind in his own zone, especially post-injury, does he become a liability against teams that thrive on counterattacks? And culturally, does a player with a no-move clause, coming off surgery, bring the hunger and adaptability a young, rising team like ours needs? Or does he arrive with baggage, expecting the team to bend him? But let's not ignore the other side. If Thomas returns to form, $8 million for a top-line center in his prime isn't outrageous in today's NHL. Pair him with Suzuki, and you've got one of the league's best center tandems, capable of matching up with anyone in a 7-game series. If Hughes can negotiate St. Louis down, say, to a first and a third-round pick by including a salary dump like Brendan Gallagher, it might look less like extortion and more like a calculated risk. The question is whether the Blues budge, and whether Thomas even wants to play in a pressure cooker market like Montreal. This is the brutal crossroads Hughes faces. On one hand, a player who could transform our attack and push us into true contender status, if he's healthy and willing. On the other, a contract that could cripple our future, an injury risk that could derail the investment, and a trade cost that feels like highway robbery. It's not just a deal. It's a referendum on whether we're desperate enough to sell the farm for a quick fix, or disciplined enough to walk away from a trap. So I'm slamming this deal onto your desk. Approve or veto. Given the stakes, do you sacrifice our entire draft haul and blow up our salary cap, tethering the franchise to an injured player until 2031, betting that Robert Thomas can return to elite form and carry us to a cup? Or do you slam the phone down on St. Louis, refusing to be their financial bailout, and send a message that Montreal isn't a charity for other teams' mistakes? Lay it all out in the comments. Don't hold back. Spell out the package you'd counter with, if any, or why you walk away no matter the price. The Bell Center doesn't play games with fools, and the deadline clock is ticking. And don't you dare look away. While we're weighing this predatory offer, a seismic rumor just broke in another league. A crisis is brewing that could shake up an entire division, and the details are just starting to leak. We'll tear into that in the next video. Stay locked in.